next chief of staff at the White House. We now know who that person is going to be. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Biden is going to tap Jeff Zients as his next White House chief of staff to replace Ron Klain, who's been in charge of the White House now for 2 years. Klain apparently, I mean, it's normal in terms of the life cycle of a chief of staff. Wants to step down sometime after the State of the Union. By the way, we will have special coverage for that here on the show. And what does that mean? Zients has worked in the White House both as a deputy chief of staff, but really made his bones and got Biden's trust by working as the COVID czar while he was there. So coordinating the vaccine response, policy response, and some of the American Rescue Plan in the early days. Now, why does any of that matter? It's not just about his work product. It's actually about who he worked for before he was in the White House and how exactly he leveraged his position from the Obama administration to then become a very, very wealthy man before he went to work for Biden. Let's put this up there on the screen. The incoming chief of staff in 2021 was worth $89.3 million, according to his own disclosure, and built his wealth through healthcare companies that were forced to pay tens of millions to settle allegations of Medicare and Medicaid fraud. For those who've been watching us for quite some time, this is not a new story. This is somebody who we focused on a lot in the early days of the Biden administration, specifically when he was tapping aides. I specifically remember this report, let's put it up there on the screen, from December of 2020. It's kind of a mini biography of what he did. I mean, this is a person who was working for the Obama administration, worked in the economic departments and was a key advisor, who leaves the White House with key knowledge and with connections and leverages it, Krystal, into private equity behemoth, working in some cases at Bain Capital, the former Mitt Romney firm, which you can't even make that up, that Obama runs against Romney, bashes him and really wins on a message of this person would bankrupt you the way he bankrupted all these companies. And then one of his top deputies leaves and goes works for Bain in terms of private equity and then starts doing leveraged activity whenever it comes to the healthcare sector. It's as scummy as it gets.
And no one in liberal media bats an eye.
No.
Nobody even notices, hey, this guy worked at Bain Capital. Right. Weren't you just saying that the work they were doing was evil and the American people actually really agreed with you on that? Nah, nobody really said a word about that. I mean, it does represent somewhat of an evolution, I think, post-Obama era, when there was very little room on the left of the spectrum to criticize anything that was happening within a Democratic administration. At least now you have a little bit of a rump caucus that will say, hey, maybe don't bring in the dude that got fined millions of dollars and made a bunch of money off of defrauding Medicare. A few little news items will be there, at least. A few lonely voices will say something about it, at least. But not only does he have that ugly past in terms of making tens of millions of dollars off of effectively healthcare fraud, he also was one of the Obama administration's chief liaisons to executives and lobbyists when anger at Wall Street over the 07-08 crisis was at its peak. Top lobbyists such as the Business Roundtable and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce have praised Mr. Zients as someone who heard them out. So that's who we're bringing in now as Biden's chief of staff, someone who probably belongs in prison, given the level of fraud that he is accused of here, in which he had his companies, affiliated companies, had to pay fines for, and instead being elevated to White House chief of staff, one of the most powerful positions in the entire country.
Yeah, here's an interesting one. He also owns $5 million in gold bars and $25 million in a security that's actually tied to the value of gold. Somewhat ironic because that's obviously an inflation hedge, and he is actually not going to be Joe Biden's literal chief of staff. Absolutely kind of hilarious. So anyway, why does this matter exactly? Because this person is now going to be the most powerful person in the White House. And let's also not forget this. Biden, he's an old man. To the extent that he controls his calendar, legislation, meetings, and all of that, the actual day-to-day operations of the White House, who knows? And if anything, chiefs of staff have been incredibly powerful under Trump, who was also a disinterested president, and now under Biden as well. I mean, Klain was a top negotiator for a lot of the bills that were happening. He basically controls the president's schedule, where events and all these things go. You really can't underestimate the power of these bureaucratic positions. And now this person is going to hold that. And Krystal, as you were saying, Jeff Zients named in Politico, let's put this up there on the screen. Do you want to read your favorite quote from this piece?
Well, I love the concerns that they raise here in this article about Zients. Now, to be fair, they do have a quote from the Revolving Door Project expressing concerns over his corporate background. But they also end with this. Zients' selection is also likely to disappoint some Democrats who saw Klain's exit as a prime opportunity for Biden to appoint a woman or person of color as his top aide. So leave it to Politico to make the most surface level critique and observation and not go an inch deeper than that level of analysis. So there you go. Just couldn't resist putting that one in.
It's just like, come on. Like, are we really being serious here about what's happening? Like, this guy, any objection to him, it should not have to do, I don't even care, if it could be a black woman, if they were also a former Bain consultant and, at least ran a company that was guilty of Medicare fraud, again, that they paid fines and fully acknowledged what they were doing, I think that would be the same criticism.
Oh, 100%. I mean, to be fair to Politico, though, they're actually right that this would be the critique that some Democrats would level, whereas if it was, a minority person or some sort of like trailblazing figure who had this exact same terrible track record, they'd be, oh, this is amazing. This is a step forward, most diverse administration in history, whatever. And it's like, okay, that's good, but what would be more important is to have someone who's going to be committed to, the common person in America and not just cozy with business and doesn't have a track record coming in of basically defrauding the government. So that's what we're looking at. And Saagar, to your point about how important this position is, under any presidency, it matters a lot what ends up in front of the president. And it especially matters in a presidency where you have a declining 80-year-old man who is really dependent on his staff to know what is going on and what's important and to frame issues for him. And so this individual who has, again, a very troubling, very closely tied to both corporate America and Wall Street in his past is being brought into a position of extraordinary power. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.